Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Beauvais and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Well, it doesn't really matter what part of the country you're in, and I know that we are worldwide. You're probably just kind of snuggled in basically on a Sunday, watching football, maybe absorbing some content, wondering who your favorite football team is going to hire as their coach because there's so many openings out there. Some have already been spoken for, some are not, including, of course, the Buffalo Bills. Welcome to It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Beauvais, Sal Capaccio. Matt, let's be honest, we'd both rather be in New England right now.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm just kind of happy that I'm alive because there was that little Facebook post that you sent me the other day that I was dead. So if you don't know what we're talking about, Sal sent me a text, a very cryptic text on Friday night. It was just said, "Hey, are you all right?" And I responded, "Yeah," with a question mark. And then he sent me a screenshot, and it was one of those AI generated Facebook posts that's a Buffalo Bills like community of news that isn't real news. And it was a picture of me that said, "Rest in peace." The most insulting part about all of this was not that I died, was that the AI generated post thought I was 46 years old.
But
I'm
the picture
33.
of you was when you were when you were like 20.
That's what I mean. The picture was when I was like 21 years old.
Yeah.
So none of it made any sense. But I'm glad you sent it to me because within the next like 10 hours, several more people sent it to me and reached out. So it kind of like allowed me to get in front of it. I had so many text messages from people, a lot of them just kind of like joking about it, which is how I treated it. I was not I just kind of laughed it off. But somebody was like, our anchor, Katie Morse, said she was getting her hair done, and her hairdresser was like, "What happened to Matt? Oh my goodness." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah. So like that's our little lesson of the day to anybody who's watching and listening. AI is very helpful, but it also can be nonsense. So make sure you are verifying where you get any of your favorite news, sports or not sports related, because I am alive and well. And I am glad to be doing the podcast here today.
Well, I was going to open it. I didn't know if you wanted to touch on it. We didn't talk about this, Matt and I, before the show. And I was going to literally open this show up, this podcast, by saying reports of his death have been greatly exaggerated because they were. I'm glad you're okay, too. I knew you were okay. I sent that text to kind of the prelude to, hey, I want to show you something by saying, are you okay? This happened with Steve Tasker, too, a couple months ago. I don't know if you know this, but Steve, like, it literally said Steve Tasker and a picture of him and everything. And then there was another one recently. Baldy tweeted, "Rest in peace, Marv Levy." I texted Baldy. I'm like, "Baldy, what's going on?" He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I said, "We're not hearing anything here." He goes, "I saw it online." I'm like, no. So he deleted it, but that can happen, right? I mean, so you got to be very careful what you're seeing. We're glad that Matt is okay. We hope everybody else is out there. We hope you are all okay because there's a major storm here in the United States, especially across the east and down south. And actually, we're not getting as much in Buffalo as so many other people are around the country, which is crazy because we always get hammered for how much snow we get. And look at Buffalo. This is the heart of all this snow. This is different this time. Most of the snow is elsewhere. We are very cold, lots of cold elsewhere as well. But most of the snow is in cities like south of us. And if the Bills were alive still playing in New England, it would be a major snowstorm game, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I get all of the emails that come into our newsroom, and one of them was just like the delays at the airport. Basically, everything coming into the Buffalo airport for the entire day is canceled. So, yeah, I mean, it's a crazy storm. Hopefully you're watching this, you're hunkering down, you're staying safe, you're staying warm. I have no idea what Monday is going to look like for people, if people are going to be shut down, if schools are going to be canceled. But we are very much in the midst of a coaching search chaos when it comes to the Bills. Like, I don't want to speak for Sal. For me, when the season ends, it's always very bittersweet because I enjoy the season. I love the games. I love the events. I love, the uncertainty that comes with it. Like, hey, we thought we would be covering an AFC championship this week. The only bright side of the season coming to an end is, okay, I'm going to catch my breath for a little bit. I'm going to recharge the batteries. Things are going to quiet down for at least a couple months. That ain't happening this offseason. This offseason is going to be as big of a story as probably the season is going to be. So there's certainly going to be a lot to talk about. And there's nothing bigger right now than the coaching search.
Okay, so we could dig into the names for sure. I think we should start with the broader picture of this whole thing, because I think people just want to know who their coach is going to be and who we like and who stands where. Before we get to that, though, I do want to talk about the reports of, and this is not a surprise to us after what Terry Pegula said. The reports are that Josh Allen is literally sitting in on these interviews. He is part of the process, not just from a, what do you think, Josh, but he's involved in this. Okay. So there's been a lot of, back and forth from people who have different feelings about that. I've made it known. I'll say this again. And this is not something just because it's Bills centric and just because it's Josh Allen. I said, even before McDermott was fired, when they were talking about the Ravens and Lamar, that Lamar absolutely should have a big voice in that. He's the most important person in the organization. Why wouldn't you have him have some sort of say and at least feel comfortable? He's not picking the player. I like what Steve Bisciotti said. He said, yes, he's gonna have a lot of say, but he doesn't have the power. I think the same thing is here, and I'm totally comfortable with it. And I think it's a good thing, and it should happen, that Josh Allen should have some sort of feedback type of say in the next coach, because he's got to be comfortable with the guy.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. It's a comfortability. And I think that it also shows how much he cares that he's taking the time out of his offseason to be sitting in meetings all day, traveling, going to Florida. Yeah. These are not 10, 15-minute interviews. These are full day commitments that he is making. And you could say, well, of course he would do that. There's a lot of players who wouldn't do that. There's a lot of players who, when their season is done, they're going home, they're golfing, they're doing their thing. I think he wants to make sure that he feels comfortable with whoever they ultimately decide. And maybe that's just part of it. Maybe that's building a relationship before that person has even formally been hired, just so they have a little bit of a head start before the getting to know each other process begins, because I do think that's a big component to it. It doesn't bother me. It would bother me if Josh Allen was the one making the decision, but I don't think he is. I think he is a voice in the room, and he is helping the people who are really making the decision. And there's a lot of layers to this too. Like, I think I trust Josh Allen with what he thinks this team needs more than I trust Terry Pegula with what he thinks this team needs. So I understand it's not all Josh, but I also do think his voice matters. This team is always, in this era, going to live and die with Josh Allen. That is not breaking news to anybody. Mm-hmm. This is just the latest example of it. So I don't think his voice needs to have final say, but I think it's okay that his voice is carrying some weight here.
The other kind of, polarizing thing that happened this week was when we found out that Phillip Rivers had an interview with the Bills. And there's been a lot of reaction to that, all the way from this is really cool, Phillip Rivers. Yeah, he's been this high school coach. He wants to coach. And to the, oh my God, are you kidding me? What a joke. I can't believe that's happened. Your thoughts, and then I'll give mine.
I kind of like it. I don't know if it'll work. I very much want Phillip Rivers to be on the staff. It feels like some of the reporting has hinted that this is the foot in the door, see what this guy is about, and then see if this potentially leads to something down the road. That could be passing game coordinator, that could be quarterback coach, that could potentially be offensive coordinator if they hire an offensive guy who's going to call plays. So there's a lot of layers to this. I like the idea of bringing somebody like that into the building because you know how much he cares. It seems like he and Josh have a very good relationship with each other. It's outside the box and it's different. It's very NBA. It's not very NFL. The fact that this guy's never coached in the NFL, that's a red flag. This stuff happens in the NBA all the time. Like JJ Redick was talking on ESPN, and then the next, all of a sudden, he was the head coach of the Lakers. Same thing with Jason Kidd and some of all of these other players who have just immediately slid into that role. I don't know if I want them to make him the head coach, but I'm very comfortable if they put him on the staff in any capacity, really.
Yeah, I like what you said there, because I agree that there is certainly a possibility. And here's why. Here's kind of how this all works, I think. And people can think, well, that's just ridiculous or whatever, but this is the business, which is this. Apparently, Josh Allen and Phillip Rivers share an agent. Okay. Philip Rivers obviously has some sort of goal to be coaching in the NFL. And once you know that, and you also know, by the way, I believe Philip and Josh worked out a little bit before the 2018 draft, but either way, they know each other. So this to me reads very much of, hey, my client, they know each other, really wants to do this. It'd be great if he could, maybe you guys could pick his brain, he could pick your brain, get him in there for an interview. Philip Rivers gets the experience of an interview, which is really valuable when it comes to these kinds of things. And the Bills get to feel him out of, is this somebody that we might want to add to our staff? Is this somebody that we could get some feedback from and say, you know what? We don't know a lot about him as a coach, but this is great. Maybe it's a brand new opportunity to look at somebody we never thought of that we could bring on staff. Josh, what do you think about him? And Brandon, what do you think about him? And everybody else. So I don't see any harm in it. Someone tweeted me the other day, what a waste of time. My reaction was, well, why? What else could you have been doing while you were interviewing him? It's not your time. It's the Bills' time. There's no waste of time if you're truly trying to get some sort of information, even if that person doesn't have really much of a chance to get the head coaching job.
I also want to make it clear that there was a specific answer in Brandon Beane and Terry Pagula's press conference that is pertinent here. It was actually a question by me, and it was, is there a type of coach you were looking for? And they went on this soliloquy of the types of things that they were looking for. But Brandon said they are looking for a CEO. That is the type of coach that they are looking for, somebody who is overseeing everything. If that's Philip Rivers and they think he is the best leader of men that they have talked to, and you surround that with some really proven coaches and coordinators, I could be convinced that it's not a terrible idea. Like, here's an example, and I don't want to dunk on anybody. I would be happier with them hiring Philip Rivers than I would hiring Joe Brady, who's been this team's offensive coordinator, Anthony Lynn, who has been an interim head coach, or Anthony Weaver, just because he's defensive, and I think he'd be a hell of a defensive coordinator, but I don't want this team going and hiring a defensive-minded person to be their head coach. That's not a knock on any of the other three people. I just appreciate the fact that they're thinking and looking outside the box a little bit. That doesn't mean it has to be a great idea, or it doesn't have to mean that it's a slam dunk. But I like that they're exploring all of their options, and if you surround that guy with what I would imagine, he's got some great relationships in this league, I bet he could put together a damn good staff. I think he could probably put together a better staff than anybody else that they're talking to right now.
Yeah, and listen, I agree. I know it's en vogue right now to basically just make fun of a lot of the things the Bills are doing because of the press conference, because of the way they did or didn't handle Sean McDermott's dismissal, because of Philip Rivers coming in or whatever have you. It's just en vogue. That's what people do. And someone else, another tweet I got the other day at Sal Sports, by the way, at Matt_Bove, was, while this just shows that they have a lack of direction of what they want to do. I'm like, no, if the Bills only focused on certain types of we only want an offensive coach or only a defensive coach or guys that are a certain age, that would be tunnel vision. And that would be a disservice to everybody. Absolutely. You should always open it up to anybody who you think might in some way, shape, or form give you a little bit of information that you didn't have before that leads you down a different path. And then what also might happen is, and I'm going to give you an example here, okay? When the Eagles were looking for a head coach this last time around, Frank Reich said, you should interview Nick Sirianni. He was not on their radar originally, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you talk to people who lead you to other people sometimes, whether that's for head coach or maybe coordinator even, Matt, because that's going to be, to me, even, I'm not going to say the bigger hire, the coordinators, but holy cow, in this situation, it's absolutely going to be massive.
Yeah, it's going to be whoever's calling plays on both sides. That doesn't have to be the head coach.
That's right.
I think we're assuming it will be because of the lean towards the offensive side that I think a lot of us feel like they are going to go. If you hire Brian Daboll to be your head coach, he's going to call plays, right? Like, that's what's going to happen.
Yes.
But if they hire Davis Webb, he doesn't immediately have to call plays. You would assume that he probably might, but if he's not doing it currently, he might say, listen, I want to ease into this. I want to oversee things. I want to have a kind of vision over everything that is being decided. I think that's a very good point. And I think with Philip Rivers specifically, that does bring in the agent point is a really good one of like, this guy really wants to get into coaching.
Yeah.
He's a winner. He's a leader. He's going to make a staff better with him on it. Talk to him, see what you think. And the Bills, Ian Rappaport reported this morning, so we're recording this on Sunday. They went through some of the notable things that are happening in the NFL. They brought up the Mike McCarthy news in Pittsburgh. They brought up the Phillip Rivers stuff, and then they brought up Grant Udinski, who we'll get to. But they were like, yeah, Phillip Rivers did a really good job, and he was really impressive in this interview. Now, I don't know where that information is coming from, but I'm sure people want it to be known that he did a good job in that interview. Maybe it was so good that they're like, we don't want to let this guy leave, but we don't want him to be a head coach either.
Right.
And then they figure out, okay, Phillip, you want to get your start in coaching? We're going to give it to you here. You're going to work with Josh Allen, and who knows where this might lead you. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's very exploratory, or all of a sudden, maybe we find out that Phillip Rivers is the Bills head coach.
I believe the betting odds right now are Brian Daboll to be the next Bills head coach. So obviously a name that's been out there. We're both very familiar with Brian. We know him well. He's been in Buffalo. I believe his kids still live in Buffalo. He loves to come back to Buffalo. We know that he's a Buffalo guy. We also know he has this relationship with Josh Allen. One of the things that was said from Ryan Fitzpatrick that people are latching onto, which is true, and others have said it too, but it was on his podcast, Fitz and Andrew Whitworth. He said, one thing that you need in Buffalo is somebody who's not Josh Allen's golfing buddy. Is you need a guy who's going to coach Josh Allen, hold him accountable, coach him hard. So I've asked a couple of people who've been around both Brian Daboll, Josh Allen, and when they were together, I said, which category would Brian Daboll fall into? Is he Josh's golfing buddy, or is he coaching him hard and accountable?
Coaching him hard.
That's exactly right. Because I think there's a perception, Matt, of, oh no, you bring in him is because Josh loves him and he's just his buddy. That is not the case. Brian Daboll was on the New England Patriots staff with Bill Belichick multiple times, by the way, back and forth. He was on Nick Saban's coaching staff. Brian Daboll is not I'm going to be pals with the guy. He's a relationship guy, no doubt about that. But he is a guy that would hold Josh Allen and others accountable. And we can say what we want about his record in New York, and I get that, and that's something that would be held against him, no doubt about it. But I still look at him as a very big, as a main front runner for this position.
I think so too. I think that right now I would say he's the most likely guy that they have talked to that I think would get the head coaching job. I think the differentiation we need to make is that Brian Daboll coaches his players hard, but he also loves on them hard.
Yes.
When you deserve praise, when you deserve criticism, he is going to give you both of those things. And I think that's what this team needs. I think Brian Daboll would immediately provide that. The red flag with him is, why did it go so badly in New York? And it's easy to just say, well, he did not have great quarterback play. Well, that is, though, still a red flag. Why weren't you able to rise above that? And why did it consistently get worse from the time you got there when you won AP NFL Coach of the Year to the time that you were fired halfway through your final season in New York?
I'll give you another red flag on that note. Once Daniel Jones left New York, he got better.
I know.
That's not good for Brian Daboll.
I know.
The other thing that people are concerned about with Daboll, and we both know this, his temperament, right? Like on the sidelines as a head coach, sometimes he doesn't exude what a lot of people think a head coach should be, but he's also very passionate. And some people love that kind of thing, but those are the things against him. The things that are for him are, holy cow, Josh Allen was the best version of himself when Brian Daboll was coaching him, and they were amazing together. And yes, he is a guy that I remember the day. I remember it. It was 2019 in Buffalo. Josh Allen against the New England Patriots. Josh throws a couple of bad balls, and that's the day that Brian Daboll got on his ass. Since that day, Josh Allen turned things around.
Yes, it's funny that Josh always kind of points to that moment.
That's right.
He was pressing in that game. He was trying to make things happen, and Daboll leaned into him and was like, "Stop trying to do too much. Like, you are hurting your team." I think Brian Daboll is a strong candidate. I think he's probably the most likely candidate. That also doesn't mean he's the one that would get me the most excited. I think it's the safest pick, and I don't want the Bills to make a pick because it's the safest pick.
Do you think Brian Daboll would entertain coming back as an offensive coordinator with a different head coach who gets hired?
See, that's what I think is the best case scenario, but I don't know if that to be true because I have seen the reporting, Diana Rossini from The Athletic, but this was before all of the stuff with the Bills started, that if he didn't get the Bills job, he was expected to take the Titans offensive coordinator job. I just have a hard time believing. And once again, I haven't talked to Brian since any of this stuff happened, but I have a hard time believing a guy from Buffalo would rather be in Nashville as the offensive coordinator for Cam Ward than the offensive coordinator for somebody who he already has a very strong relationship with, Josh Allen. I think the thing that I would be the most excited about for the Bills would be a younger, but maybe more innovative and promising person getting the head coaching job and then hiring Brian as their offensive coordinator. I think would be but I just don't think that's likely, but I think that would be the most exciting thing if you were somebody who wants to see immediate success.
Daboll, I don't care what city he's gone. He went back to college and coached in Alabama, right? I mean, like I don't think it matters that a Buffalo guy going somewhere. And to your point about coming back here versus there, the one thing I would say though about these coaches is sometimes like Brian Daboll may be in a position where, look, I've already done that in Buffalo. That's true. I don't want to do that again. It's either I go back as a head coach or I just don't go back there. I don't know that. He may say, no, Josh is there. I want to be with Josh. He could very well do that, but I don't know. I mean, hey, Robert Saleh went back to San Francisco to be the DC, right? I mean,
he got a head coaching
he got a head coaching
in Tennessee,
job.
coincidentally.
That's right. He got a head coaching job. Brian Daboll also interviewing, by the way, for the Las Vegas Raiders head coaching job. And then we'll see also, I don't think, is Philly on the table for him anymore? That was a big thing.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, it didn't seem like it. It seemed like it was Tennessee or one of the head coaching jobs, but maybe. I mean, maybe.
All right. So we're going through some of these names. Let's talk about one that was going to happen but didn't. Mike McDaniel. What'd you make of him saying, I'm pulling out of the Bills head coach search, just like he did in Cleveland, by the way?
I wonder if it was the same thing that we were just talking about with an interest in being a coordinator, but not an interest in him being the head coach. And if he had that type of intel or his agent had that type of intel and he was like, listen, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste my time having this conversation. I'd rather be the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles than the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. And I already have that job. I just signed a contract there. So that to me is my read on it. I don't think it paints the Bills in some bad light of like people didn't even want to interview for the job. I think it was just more kind of like the Bills weren't I'm thinking the Bills weren't very serious about him as the head coach. And at that point he was like, nah, I like what I have right now.
Yeah. That seems like it. And the fact that he can just, he's going to be the OC with the Chargers, it feels like, right? That's what's going to happen. Yeah. And hey, you got that on the table. Chargers are like, hey, let us know what's going on. We'd like to really make a move here. He may just say, look, I'm going to take a step back and reevaluate. And maybe that's not the right move for me to Buffalo, but I agree with you. That could also be it. What I don't think though, and I want to make this clear, I don't think anything that happened last week had anything to do with Mike McDaniel saying, I don't want to go to Buffalo. Or I don't want to be in the interview, meaning like the press conference and all of that. I just don't think that is the case right there. A guy that's I really love his demeanor. I love listening to him, watching him. It does give me pause because he's a defensive coach now, but I'll be the first to always tell you, doesn't matter. The right coach is the right coach. Could be from anywhere. Is Anthony Weaver. I just don't know if he's ready for this yet. You know what I mean? But he has definitely moved up the ladder. But man, that guy exudes football, right? I mean, he exudes, and I do love listening to him and thinking about like I think that kind of guy leading your organization. But I just think he's an interesting candidate.
No, I think he's a good candidate. I think same thing. If you could get him and convince him to become your defensive coordinator, it would be a slam dunk hire for you. But I think he's also looking for head coaching jobs, and rightfully so. He was very impressive with Miami last year. Their defense was substantially better than I think anybody anticipated it was going to be with the injuries that they had and the parts that they moved on from trading Jalen Phillips at the deadline, and yet somehow their defense got better. I think there's a lot to like about that candidate. I would be frustrated if they just I don't want to say replicated what they just did, because it's a completely different person, and that's not fair to him or to Sean McDermott that I'm putting all of this in one bucket. But I think the key for the Bills to unlock whatever this next level is, or that to me doesn't warrant a change. It doesn't make any sense to me to move on from an established and well-respected defensive-minded head coach to bring in an unestablished and inexperienced defensive-minded head coach. It feels like you're making this move to bring in somebody who can take your offense to the next level. So when they get the ball, they go down the field in crunch time and score touchdowns. That's why this move was made. So I feel like it's got to be an offensive guy.
Yeah, well, listen, you said some things earlier that lead me to believe that you are very much you really like Grant Udinski and the idea of
Yes.
that is by the things
Yeah.
you said. And I very much like the idea of Grant Udinski as well.
So
Here
do
here
I.
are the issues I have though. Okay, and I like him a lot. I think he's what I like. I'll say what I like and don't like because I'm not saying I think he should or shouldn't.
Mhm.
What I like a lot is, I mean, he exudes again football. He's a football guy. Everybody you talk to, everybody hear from is like, this dude is innovative. He's creative. He's eating, sleeping, breathing offensive football. He knows his stuff. He's made connections. He relates to his players. All those kinds of things you love to hear. Here's what would give me pause. He's the same age as Josh Allen. He's 30 years
Yeah.
old. Is he going to coach Josh Allen really hard? And you know what I mean? As a first-time head coach at the same age, he also has never called plays. But
Yeah.
you could, to your point, you don't have to have him call plays. Somebody else could. But I just don't know if that. And by the way, I'm going to put Davis Webb in this same category. The only difference is Davis Webb and Josh Allen actually are buddies. And that's even something we just talked about of could that work? So I love the idea of Grant Udinski, other than I'd be really a little bit weary of very young, same age as the quarterback who you're trying to, as we say, coach hard, and he's never even called plays.
Yeah, I think those are all very valid concerns, and I want to make that clear. It feels like anybody that they hire, we're going to be able to say these are the valid concerns about them, and we can nitpick because I feel like the list of candidates this year is not as sterling as it has been in other years,
Right.
which makes the decision to fire Sean McDermott maybe even more curious, but that's a different conversation for a different day. The thing that I like about Grant Udinski, and this is painting with a fairly broad brush, I will admit that, but we had a conversation right after the press conference in the media room the other day when I said, I forgot who I was talking to, but I was like, if I could take any head coach in the NFL and put them on the Bills, Sean McVay is the easy answer, no brainer. But after that, I think I would say Kevin O'Connell. And a lot of different people had their different conversations and their little different commentary, and understandably so. This was Kevin O'Connell's right-hand man for years. And then he left, and they really struggled. Now, I understand a lot of that is tied to the quarterback play. But it's not a coincidence that he left, they struggled, he gets somewhere else, and then all of a sudden he and Liam Cohen turned Trevor Lawrence into an MVP finalist. This was not a good year for Trevor Lawrence. This was a spectacular year for him. So it just feels like where he is, success happens. And he learned under the guy or next to the guy that I said I think would be my favorite option for the Bills. He's not an option, but what about the guy who spent 3 years learning from him is? And then you go and you have this success in Jacksonville. The not calling plays thing is definitely a concern because if you're hiring him, now what are you doing with offensive coordinator? Is he calling plays as a head coach for the first time? That feels like an awful lot to put on somebody's plate, let alone a 30-year-old's plate. It would be nuts to me that the head coach of the Bills might be younger than me. That's crazy, but that is the reality of the situation.
I remember when I turned those ages where I'm like, wait a minute, these guys, a guy just had a whole career and is retiring, and I remember when he was a rookie.
That's what I mean. So yeah, like that's now the part of my career that I'm at, and that this guy would be younger than me. And that's listen, if they are floored by him, it feels like the same thing with Davis Webb, where it's head coach or it's not. Like he's not coming. Maybe Davis Webb comes here as an offensive coordinator because that would be an upgrade for him. I don't know if Udinski's leaving somewhere. Is he even allowed to? Even though he doesn't call plays, I think he would be allowed to.
It'd be a lateral move. You can't. Yeah, you could. He couldn't. You're saying Udinski being hired as an offensive coordinator in Buffalo?
Even though he doesn't call plays in Jacksonville?
That does not matter. It does not matter. Even if you made him the assistant head coach, it would not matter. It'd be a lateral move.
Okay, so Davis Webb can, because he's not the offensive coordinator.
Correct.
Udinski cannot.
Correct.
Because he is currently the Jags offensive coordinator. Once again, sometimes the promise of the unknown is more appealing than the resumes of some of these people who have fizzled out elsewhere. And that doesn't mean it's a good move, but I just think it would be a big swing. They would be swinging for a home run and not for a double, which I like.
Yeah, I mean, I really do like Grant Udinski a lot as a football coach. I just have a couple of things that I'd have to get over and say, okay, is this the right fit for this time. And I could very easily get there because I do love his brain and everything surrounding him and everything I've heard about him. Okay. Joe Brady had the interview first, the first interview. He's also in line possibly to be an offensive coordinator at other places like Baltimore. A lot of people think, and had a lot of people ask me, they're just going to elevate Brady, right? I just can't see it. Like I've never thought that this job would go to him. And I don't know if it's, I don't know if I'd be on board with the move anyway.
I wouldn't either. I think that all of these options that I said previously, I like more than the idea of Joe Brady as the Bills head coach. I just had reservations about what the offense was this year. And to me, that doesn't warrant a promotion. It doesn't warrant more responsibility. Joe Brady might be a fantastic head coach in the NFL at some point, and maybe he will be. I just don't see it right now with this particular team. And, you could say, well, how much of this was the offense that he wanted? How much of it was it what Sean wanted? Is the identity of what he wants to? It's just like, it felt so predictable at the end. And I know it's what got them there, but it was still mind-numbingly frustrating to watch. First down, run. Okay, every single time. One of their next 2 passes was going to be a screen pass. Now, I get it. Like, they didn't have the personnel to do many other things well. It just felt too stale, and it felt too boring, honestly.
Well, my reservation is more so not from that, which all those things are valid. I am not suggesting the Bills should even look at this person as a head coach, and we know they're not, but I would say this. Of the 2 coordinators the Bills had, Bobby Babich is much more CEO type than Joe Brady. Right? Would you agree with that? Like, that's my reservation with Joe, which is, I don't know if he's ready for the CEO type role they want. If you want an offensive mind, a guy who's smart, that's fine, but I'd have to see it because Sean was such a CEO, you know what I mean? That it maybe overshadowed some of that, but I think Babich had much more of that personality to me than what I've seen from Joe Brady. But we'll see. Maybe he does get a job somewhere. Maybe it's in Buffalo, and he can. All right, Lou Anarumo, he did get an interview as well, Colts defensive coordinator. He used to be with the Bengals, of course, and he did a really good job against Josh Allen a few times. He beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs as well. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Lou Anarumo, but it doesn't feel like that would move the needle much.
No, I agree. I feel like, once again, I don't want to be a broken record, but like Lou Anarumo, think he would be a great defensive coordinator. Don't think the Bills should be the team that gives him the opportunity to be their head coach. I just feel like there would be other moves that would be more intriguing and more inspiring for the Bills. And I want to put the caveat in, like, we're not in these interviews. Like, we don't know exactly what these guys are saying.
That's
They
right.
might. Maybe Lou Anarumo gave the greatest interview of all time, and they're like, we have to hire this guy. I just don't see it.
Anthony Lynn, same boat, right? Just, hey, he's been a part of the organization. I know that the Pagulas have a lot of respect for him from when he was here, for sure. He was named the interim coach when Rex Ryan was fired. He's been a couple of stops since then. It just doesn't feel like that would work. That would be what you'd want to do here, I guess.
I feel like Anthony Lynn is this similar situation to Phillip Rivers. Obviously, one has a lot of coaching experience and one doesn't. But I wonder if this is the pick Anthony Lynn's brain to potentially give him a promotion if you are building a new staff, because you could. He's like the run game coordinator in Washington. It's not like he has some big title with their offense. You could make him the offensive coordinator if you really liked what he had to say, or if you really liked the ideas that he brought to the table. But what I'll say is this exercise has done for me has made me more excited and intrigued about the potential of Phillip Rivers than anything else, honestly. And maybe that speaks more to the other candidates than it does to him. But I'm like, man, I think a press conference with Phillip Rivers would be more fun than a press conference with Lou Anarumo or something.
All right, so we've gone through the 7 interviews they've had: Anarumo, Daboll, Brady, Lynn, Udinski, Weaver, and Rivers, and then the one that pulled out of the interview, Mike McDaniel, which they did say they would stay in contact. We'll see where that goes.
Sure.
Now we touched on Davis Webb. Is there anyone else playing this weekend that you think is still very possible for the Bills to talk to, and you wouldn't be surprised and might move the needle for you?
Yeah, well, Clint Kubiak is
Clint
definitely
Kubiak, of course,
number
first
one
name, right?
on the list.
By the way, I think somebody else I read today, he's on their radar as well, right? Is that the Raiders, I think?
He's on the Bills or the Raiders radar?
Yeah,
that
I
makes
think
sense.
so.
I mean, listen, he goes to Seattle in his first year as the offensive coordinator. They average more points per game than the Bills. They do it with Sam Darnold as their quarterback. There is a lot to like about what his resume shows in the first year he was in Seattle this year, and then when he was even in New Orleans the year prior to that, it feels like of all of the things we've talked about, he might be the best blend of safe, but also innovative and exciting and a lot of potential. Feels like that's what Clint Kubiak is to me. He's 38 years old, so he's been around the league a little bit, but it's not like he's super old. I think he would come in and he would be able to show his resume and command a room and all of these things. But I also don't think he's my favorite option. I think he might be, besides Brian Daboll, though, the most likely option.
I think I agree with that.
Depending on the outcome of Sunday's games, though.
Yeah, I think from the very, very beginning of this, Clint Kubiak's name was right kind of, okay, like that's a guy that they could target. Clint Kubiak, by the way, yes, if you know that name, I don't believe in a relation to Jim Kubiak here in Buffalo. There's a Jim Kubiak in Buffalo who does UB football games, and he's a former quarterback. But yes, the son of Gary Kubiak, longtime coach. I didn't realize his brother is coaching in San Francisco. That's Clay Kubiak.
Yes.
Apparently he was getting some love. And then he also has another brother, and I'm gonna have to find out if Clint Kubiak got the job in Buffalo. One of my first questions is, how come everybody in your family starts with K? It's Clint with a K, it's Clay with a K, and it's Klein, who's a national scout for the Dallas Cowboys. How about that?
Oh, interesting. Gary Kubiak, didn't Gary Kubiak do something kind of similar to what the Bills are trying to do? Didn't Denver hit a little bit of a roadblock, and then they hired Gary Kubiak and he won a Super Bowl? Am I mixing my teams up? Who was their coach before Gary Kubiak? Was it John Fox?
John Fox, yes.
And Gary Kubiak was the one that won them the Super Bowl. How long was John Fox in Denver?
Gary Kubiak did not win the Super Bowl as the head coach in Denver. Oh, you mean when they? Oh, yeah. You know what? I have to
with
look.
Peyton Manning.
With Peyton Manning. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, yeah.
How long was John Fox in Denver? I'm gonna look it up.
Like, I mean, close to 10 years, maybe. I would think, right?
When I think of John Fox, I think of him as the Carolina Panthers head coach. I don't think of him as the Denver head coach. Actually, so John Fox was in Denver for 4 years. Okay. He went 8-8, 13-3, 13-3, 12-4. Then I don't know what happened, but obviously he was no longer the head coach. Gary Kubiak came in, and then that's when they won the Super Bowl.
Do you know
why?
But it's so funny. This is how old I'm getting now. When you started to go down that road, the reason why I said no, I remember Gary Kubiak as the quarterback for the Broncos in the late 90s, in the early 90s. I mean, he actually played. He came in for Elway in the AFC Championship game against the Bills.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Gary Kubiak only coached for 2 years as the head coach in Denver. In 2015, his first year, when they won the Super Bowl, and then the previous year, the next year, they went 9-7, and he must have either quit or been fired or whatever, but he hasn't been a head coach since then.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you another name. I think Chris Shula could be a dark horse here.
I don't disagree. The
Chris
only thing
Shula,
is,
I mean, like
defense.
Young, very young, creative, apparently mind. Sean McVay pixie dust around him, right? I mean, like he's got that. Obviously, bloodlines. His grandfather, Don Shula. How crazy would that be if the Buffalo Bills hired a Shula to be their head coach, though, right?
Yeah, that would be crazy for sure. I think that, and then how do you pronounce his name? You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, and I'm gonna look it right now, and I know you're gonna say it. Say it right. Hold on.
Shieldhouse?
Not our replay. Shieldhouse. Yes, I believe is how you say it.
Is it House? Is it Shieldhouse?
I believe so. Yes, but
okay.
Nate Shieldhouse, the passing game coordinator, who's getting a lot of love, by the way.
Yeah, it feels like once again he kind of fits that like CEO mold, but it's the same thing of not somebody who is calling plays would be a massive, massive promotion for him. But it also feels like it's one of those things of like somebody might do it. Like somebody might see, hey, look at the time he's been with McVay. We think we could turn that into something.
I think I want to make sure. I think it is Shieldhouse. Shieldhouse, yes. I'm looking up my Shieldhouse. That's how you say it. He is
only 35.
Yeah, he's a younger guy too. I mean, look, I don't have to have a younger guy, an older guy, nothing like that, right?
He's only been with the Rams for 2 years.
It feels like the Bills, if they want to go in this direction, they're going to hire some sort of younger, energetic, creative type of mind, right? It just feels like that's where they would go here. Okay,
give me
any other names that we're not using here in the Final Four. You got Rams, Seahawks, Kubiak, Davis Webb, Broncos. Nobody from the Patriots. Okay, go ahead.
Well, what about? Did we say Mike LaFleur? Do we think that's an option or no?
We haven't. Matt LaFleur's brother.
Yeah, he's the.
I have
he's
not
the-
heard anything
he's-
like that, but I guess
he's
you could
the-
also throw his name in the mix.
He's the OC with the Rams right
That's
now.
right.
So once again, his status would be his availability is completely. We've said a lot of Rams name because once again, people see the McVay tree and they go, "Ooh, we want a piece of that."
The
Because
difference
there
from
has been so
McVay
much
in
success.
17, when McVay was hired, and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McDermott all in the same year, by the way, the difference was McVay was calling plays in Washington.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of these guys are not doing that, like your Udinskis or what you just said, your LaFleur, right? I mean, like Kubiak is, though, I believe, in Seattle, right? So, like, there is a difference there between all that.
LaFleur, I read, is like a collaboration, and they do it together, and that he has taken on a bigger piece of that pie, but he still isn't like the lone play caller. It feels very Bobby Babbitt, Sean McDermott-y to like he's calling the plays, but I wonder in the big moments if McVay steps in or what that relationship truly looks like. I think it's just another name to have on the radar. But I do expect several more interviews to happen right when these AFC and NFC championship games are done, because like, once again, we're recording this in the afternoon. I'm anticipating that the Patriots win, and then all of a sudden Davis Webb becomes available. In the NFC, I don't know what's going to happen, but that obviously one of the Rams or the Seahawks will be done, and then that opens up the door for Kubiak, or it opens up the door for any of the guys with the Rams we just said.
I'll give you another name that hasn't been on anyone's radar except for fans. Frank Reich. Would you visit that?
I wonder if Philip Rivers is part of the equation, if Frank Reich is also part of the equation from their time together. I wonder if that would be one of the first calls Philip Rivers would be looking to make. I don't think Frank Reich would be the person I would call to be the head coach right now, but I could see a world where he is brought in to be an offensive coordinator, or I could see, some other role with the Bills there.
Before we head on to your questions, we have questions from you. We appreciate that. Matt threw it out there at Matt_Bove. There is a report today, just happened before we went on, that Sean McDermott apparently plans on taking a year off from coaching, which does not surprise me. I know his daughter is going into college. She's a softball player. His son is in his high school years playing football as well. I'm not surprised late in the cycle like this. Sean is the kind of guy that probably really wants to get his ducks in a row before something like that. So that's been the latest report. That Sean McDermott apparently is going to take a year off from coaching. We don't know that for sure, but that explains also why, Matt, we have not heard his name is really connected to any interviews whatsoever.
You think Sean stays in Western New York? I could see that happening. I think
maybe for a year until he gets another job. Yeah,
that's what I mean. I think that with his family and the point in their lives that they're at, it might just be the most convenient thing to do. And I think that Sean will be a very sought after candidate. Obviously, a little bit of a late piece of, a late development for what the Bills decided to do. I'm sure limited the opportunities for him, but I would anticipate that in, I don't know, a year, he's going to be a very attractive candidate for somebody. What are you snickering at? You're
going to get to some questions, and I know I should never give rise to people like this. I'll get to one that's just makes me snicker and laugh. It's an insulting question to you.
Okay.
And I.
Before we get insulted, give me your dream Bills coaching staff.
I don't know if I have one. I don't know. I think I want Daboll back here to run the offense. I think that's number one.
I think I do too, but
I don't know if I want him as head coach. I don't know.
I would have Daboll as I would have Daboll as my offensive coordinator. I think I'd have Udinski as my head coach and Anthony Weaver as my defensive coordinator, with Philip Rivers as the passing game coordinator. That is mine. So it would be Udinski with Daboll and Weaver, and then Philip Rivers on the staff.
Yeah, okay. I could go with that. And Lou Anarumo running the defense wouldn't be bad either, but he's already got a job running the defense, right? I mean, so does Anthony Weaver. All right, listen. Here's the first one. I'm just going to do it because these kinds of things annoy me, but make me laugh as well. Okay.
Oh, I didn't see it. So are
you ready?
I'm flying blind.
This is from Kyle. It's from Kyle on X.
Okay.
Why were you two clowns shocked McDermott got fired despite 7 playoff failures with an all-time great QB and the national media reporting for weeks that his job was on the line? That's the first part of the question. Second part. Why do you deserve access to one Bills drive when you miss what was right in front of you? This
Hey.
goes back to our viral video of you
Yeah.
and I being on the air at the time. Now,
Uh-huh.
I went back and rewatched it a few times. Like, man, I do look really shocked because I was, but we're also doing a show, and I'm thinking I have a million things. Like, wait a minute, this just happened.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm surprised. That was one, but I'm also like 20 minutes from my show on WGR. They're on the air. What do we do here? What do I do there? Like, there's a lot of things running around our heads at that moment. That's part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked because I didn't anticipate it happening. I thought the noise from the national media was just that noise. I was like, listen, evidence has shown us that Terry Pegula usually does not make these quick decisions, because if he did, Kevin Adams wouldn't have had a job 3 years ago. So to me, I was like, why would they move on? And the other part of that too is I always thought that it would be Sean that stayed and not Brandon, because Sean was first. And that's not the only reason that I thought that. I admittedly am one of the people that believes the roster has been as big of an issue for the Bills as the coaching. And the Bills don't feel that way. That is why Brandon Beane is still here. And that is why Sean McDermott has been relieved of his duties, fired, whatever you want to say. That is why I was shocked, because I thought looking at this team and them falling short, this year was not about coaching. This year was about the roster just not being good enough. So that's why I was shocked.
And let me make one thing perfectly clear for Kyle and everybody else. Okay. Unless you can find me an example of this, no one actually reported that Sean McDermott's job was on the line. It was all speculation and wondering if his job was on the line. Not one person I know of that I can think of, maybe you know, Matt, that someone said, you know what, Sean McDermott might get fired if they lose it. It was an opinion of people that he might. It was also speculation, wondering, asking us, do you think? Not one person actually said that, Kyle. So you're wrong about that. Okay. And the reason why I was also surprised, and by the way, we did talk about it. We said, I said for months, nothing ever surprises me in this league. You never know what can happen. But I didn't think Terry would do it, because I always say to people, Terry Pegula is not calling Matt Bove or Sal Capaccio and telling him everything he thinks. I mean, it's just, that's not how it works, folks. I'm sorry to tell you.
Yeah, Terry
And when
Pegula,
we went down there, on Sunday, Matt, that's when I thought if something were to happen, this is locker cleanout day, that something would have happened on that day. Once we got through that day, yes, that was me thinking, okay, they're past it. They've had their exit meetings. We haven't heard anything. I doubt this late something would happen. So yeah, to answer your question, Kyle, even though you insulted us, it's okay. That's why I was surprised. Go ahead. You got other questions? Let's move on off that.
I was just going to say, like, I thought the only time when it became to me like it might happen, and I'm just giving, like, this is full transparency, when Sean McDermott called Jay Skursky the night of the game and kind of leaned in on the comments about the officiating. At the time, I read that as a little bit of like a last-ditch effort. But to me, that was not about keeping his job. That was about winning over the public perception of the fan base of like, hey, this guy has our back, and this guy is, standing with us, and kind of he's ready to go to war with us. Sunday for locker cleanout, I was still in Denver. Like, you were back in Buffalo on the team charter. I was in Denver. So I needed to make sure our ducks were in a row back in Buffalo. And I was like, hey, we need to send multiple people there just in case there's any major news that happens. And from what I've heard, Sean was doing exit interviews as normal. So the fact, when I heard that, I was like, oh, if Sean's doing the exit interviews, they're not making a change in coach. They wouldn't let the guy who's doing exit interviews be talking to these people if they were going to make a change. And then that's to me why it was so shocking.
I had someone like tweet me the other day, like, how come you never said anything about any friction between McDermott and Beane? Bullcrap. We talked about it for months that it seemed like they weren't on the same page. Like, I don't know what people are listening to or not when these things happen, but folks, sorry. Here's the way it works. Okay. Matt and I cover the team. We're we're still very close to a lot of things that happen. We do hear a lot of things that we have to be we're in a different position than a lot of people sometimes too. Like, you can't just run off with everything you hear. And because you're wrong, there's a lot of consequences being made. But no, Terry Pegula is not telling us what he's doing with the head coach. I mean, it's just, or any other decision. And this was Terry Pegula's decision. Let's go to other questions because I'm getting a little fired up.
Phil, are you inspired by the list of candidates, or more wrong year for a good coach kind of guy? We addressed it a little bit, but what's your take on that?
I don't know if I have to be inspired or not inspired. I think anytime you fire a coach, you're looking for someone new, and there's usually not people out there. People who are out there, they're out there for a reason. They don't have a job. I know there's some young hot candidates every year you can talk to and think about, but I don't ever really go either way on that, to be quite honest with you, Phil. Like, yeah, maybe it's not the best year for all these hot names we talk about, but it doesn't mean you can't find still a great coach.
All right, this one's from Chris. We long lamented the state of the Bills wide receiver room. Blame was primarily placed on Bean for talent and Brady for scheme. Why do you think the team's wide receiver coach, who is Adam Henry, by the way, flew below the radar? I had to Google him to find out who he was. Was there no way to improve their performance?
It's a really great question.
That's from Chris.
I think, and I've said publicly and privately, that I think Adam Henry deserves scrutiny here for them this year. But here's part of it. Other than Khalil Shakir, have they really developed any wide receiver here in Buffalo since Gabe Davis did through 4 years? And then
wasn't with Adam Henry, though.
Correct.
With Chad Hall.
The Bill, and he's only been on the job for a few years now, but overall in this regime, they have not really developed wide receivers.
No, and I think you could make the argument that every receiver besides Khalil Shakir has gotten worse once they got to Buffalo, and that's an interesting viewpoint of it. But the quarterback is Josh Allen. How does that happen? Like why? And you could say that's a Joe Brady thing. You could say that is an Adam Henry thing. I don't know what the answer to that is. I think everybody in that receiver room probably deserves some blame, and I also think almost all of them might be gone. I think Shakir is a safe bet to be back. And if you want to say, if you're listening to this and you're pulling your hair out and you're like, well, Tyrell Shavers for the last couple of years. My goodness gracious, I like Tyrell Shavers. Really nice player, really good guy. But if that's the bar, what are we doing? That speaks to the level of how bad this wide receiver room was. That that's the promising one. That's the glimmer of hope. I think Tyrell Shavers should be on this team next year as, once again, their 5th or 6th wide receiver who's a really, really great blocker. And all of this brings us to our next question, which is a really good one from Russell. What percentage do you give that Keon Coleman is on the roster week 1 next season?
20%.
Okay, I would say 25. So we're in lockstep. We're pretty close there. I do not think that it is likely. I don't see how
it's far more unlikely than likely.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is partly that his value isn't probably very high right now, considering everything that's happened and his lack of production, his being inactive, his known tardiness. The other issue is at certain points, where are the benchmarks to and the points of trading, right? Like it's usually right before the draft, maybe. And then once you get past that, you could do something in the summer. It's generally camp. And then what if they have him? He goes to camp and he looks really good. Like there are things here that you could keep him on the roster and think that way. But I think it's far more unlikely than likely right now.
Yeah, I agree. There was a good question here. Okay, this is from JT Flood. What's one bold prediction for the offseason from a team standpoint, i.e., for a top wide receiver trade or someone we think is a lock for the team that gets traded? What's your bold personnel offseason prediction?
Bold personnel offseason prediction.
I want spicy. I don't want they cut Taron Johnson or something. Like that's not spicy enough.
Is it spicy to say, I think we start hearing about Terrell Bernard being the Will linebacker and no longer the Mike linebacker?
No, I don't think that's spicy.
Okay.
I don't.
That's a pretty big shift.
He's
been the Mike linebacker, and they just paid him a lot of money last year.
Yeah, I don't think that's that spicy though. Because if they start,
okay, ready? I don't think they can keep either, and we'll keep either Connor McGovern or David Edwards.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think we should probably start to anticipate that, to be honest.
Right. So, I don't know. I don't. Yes. I don't know who. I don't know how. I absolutely believe that Brandon Beane will change his philosophy, direction whatsoever to try and bring in a number 1, quote unquote, wide receiver this offseason. I think it's not going to be I could say a specific name. I think that they're going to overreact or overcorrect the wide receiver position, and it's going to lead to a very fun offseason of Brandon Beane basically being like, you want to complain about wide receivers? I'm going to give you wide receivers. Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden next year, their wide receiver room is AJ Brown, Khalil Shakir, some guy that they draft in the 2nd round or 1st round or whatever.
Yeah.
Tyrell Shavers and like some other, what the other part of this too is, if Phillip Rivers is involved, does that mean Alec Pierce is a target in free agency?
Right.
Because there was that familiarity in Indianapolis. And I think he's a really good player. So like, there's names. Marvin Harrison Jr. I would be. Here's fun.
Oh, you're really going out there now. Justin Jefferson's unhappy. Go revisit Minnesota.
I don't think that would work. I don't know why they would trade him. Marvin Harrison.
I don't either. I'm just saying, if you're going to bring up Marvin Harrison Jr., that's delicious.
I have a tweet from it was a Thursday night football game, and it was a Thursday night football game that the Cardinals were playing in. Okay, and Marvin Harrison was having a really nice day, and for some reason I was like, "What would you trade for Marvin?" It was only one good game. I was like, "Would you trade Keon in a third for Marvin Harrison?" And people were dunking on me like, "You're out of your mind. What a terrible trade. What a stupid move. It's a good thing you're not the GM." I was like, you would do anything to go back and say something like that would work. Anything. I don't even think Keon, we just said, we don't think Keon's going to be on the team. So any other questions you want to answer? There's one other good one that I want to end on.
No, but I do want to wrap with something that I want to ask from you, but we can ask one more here. Go ahead.
All right. Game 1 playoff starter, UPL or Alex Lyon?
My prediction, or who should it be?
It's who we would pick.
I think you have to stick with UPL. Alex Lyon looks really good, but right now, I think UPL's been the guy you've had in this organization. He's been through these battles with you. I think to me, that means something a little bit here, right?
No.
You don't think so?
I disagree. I think Alex Lyon's the better player.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I think the
UPL's look pretty good right now, though.
Alex Lyon hasn't lost in 9 games. He's won his last 9 games.
He's been amazing.
It's so clear that they're the top
month.
2 guys. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
ask me in a month.
Should be the guy who's the hot hand in April. And if we're having this conversation, hell yes. Like, we can make this we can temporarily make this a Sabres podcast if we have to. I'm totally down.
Okay, then I'll ask you this. What young player right now on the Sabres current active roster are they going to trade? Because they're going to trade somebody to bring in somebody to get him because they're going to do it. You know it. Yarmo is doing it. He's trading. And I'm dreading it as I'm like, one of these young guys is going because he's going to say, this is what I need to make sure I get in the playoffs at the trade deadline.
I could see them wanting to trade Jack Quinn. But I don't think the return would be nearly as high as it would be for one of the other ones, which would be Kulik, Osland, or Helenus, or however you pronounce his name.
What about 25?
Yeah, but not now. I don't think that's a now one. I think that's a summer trade. I think a lot of this also depends on what you're going to do with Alex Tuck. Because if you decide you're going to keep Alex Tuck, you're going to have to move money out, which would mean you're probably trading Owen Power. And then you're probably honestly extending Bo Byram. They've got it's a great position to be in this, that we're having these conversations because they're playing awesome.
I have a feeling it would be Jack Quinn. I do. And I don't love that because I think they're all playing really well. And I like watching Jack Quinn. And I thought about Benson, but I think he means so much right now, what they're doing.
No way. No way you can move Benson. No way.
By the way, Matt and I are recording just before the AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game kickoff. And I want to ask you, though, sticking with football, I'm going to give you the name and the team they went to, and you just give me your first kind of thought that comes to your mind, okay?
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski gets hired by Atlanta.
Fine. Cool. Whatever. It's just whatever. I think he's a good coach, but he's went from a place where he doesn't have a quarterback to another place where they have questions at quarterback.
Jesse Minter gets hired by the Ravens.
I like Jesse Minter, but at the same time, I'm surprised that's the route they went.
Me too. I mean, I just didn't feel like that would be what they would do. It doesn't mean he's a bad coach, but it feels kind of similar to if Jesse the Bills were to hire, young DC here that we're like, wait a minute, then you just do that?
Jesse Minter to the Ravens is like if the Bills hire Brian Daboll. And I know they're opposite sides of the ball, but it's convenient and it's familiar and it's easy. That's what it was to me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see. He
because he was with the Ravens, then he left, and then he came back to the Ravens.
Yeah, when was he with the Ravens? Because he was on their staff. Yeah, I mean, up until 2020, which is interesting. Well, you know what it is? Someone said this to me. It's funny. I think not that they could do anything about it. They kind of regret letting Mike McDonald go.
God, of course they do.
So they bring back a guy that say, well, we'll just make up for it by this.
Of course they do.
All right. Next one. John Harbaugh, New York Giants.
It's a good hire for them. That's
I mean, it fits.
that's a stability, and
Yeah.
you know, that's a smart move for them. They
Yeah,
paid him
I
so
mean-
much money, but it's a good move.
Absolutely. That organization that totally fits. Jeff Hafley with the Miami Dolphins.
My perception, I don't know enough about Jeff Hafley, so I don't want to be ignorant here. I just it as somebody who covers the Bills, it changes nothing about the Miami Dolphins for me.
That's a great way to put it. Like, I don't know, what did they really do here? Right? You know what I mean? Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. He's got to show me. I have no idea. I have no idea what he can or can't do, but I'm skeptical. I think organization there matters much more than coach right now, right? Is
Yeah,
what
I
it
agree.
feels like. Robert Saleh, Tennessee.
I like Robert Saleh. I like Robert Saleh a lot. I wonder how much of his lack of success in New York was the dysfunction of that organization. But
Mhm.
I've always thought that he was capable of being an NFL head coach. He was just kind of in a clown show in New York.
Yeah, probably right. And I mean, he went back to San Fran and showed that he is a really high quality coach of that side of the ball.
Uh-huh.
And I do think that, they have some talent in Tennessee. It might take another year or so, but it'll be interesting. Let's see who's OC is. It could be Brian Daboll. And then finally, the last one that was hired, most recent, Mike McCarthy goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
LOL. That's what I would say. I think it's whatever. It's like they basically just hired a different version of Mike Tomlin. It feels like
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
like he's an offensive guy, and he's got a strong history of developing quarterbacks, but they don't have a quarterback to develop.
Well, now
And he's
maybe he gets Rodgers back because him and
Who
Rodgers
ca-
are.
If
I
that's
know.
what you're planning on, it's like,
I know.
what are you doing? This needs to be a future move. So you went
Yeah.
with it. It's not.
I was kind of stunned. That family, the Rooney family, that organization had a history of young guys who kind of no one else thought about. Bill Cowher comes in he was the special teams coordinator in Cleveland. Mike Tomlin comes in. He was at Tampa, I think, wherever maybe Minnesota, whatever. Mike Tomlin comes in like, well, who's this guy? And they did a great job of surrounding those guys and building the culture. And this is totally a departure from that.
Yeah, I thought that it was going to be like a young, splashy, crazy hire.
Chris Shula.
And I was thinking Udinski there.
Yeah.
I was thinking Shula. I was thinking like one of the
Anthony Weaver would have fit there, right? Come on.
Anthony Weaver or Brian Flores. Like that's
Yes,
another
Brian
one
Flores,
that
yes.
I know Brian Flores is different than the other ones, but I was like, Brian Flores feels like a Steelers, and because there was the familiarity. He went back there after everything happened in Miami and kind of like revitalized his career while working with Tomlin. I was like, oh yeah, that one makes sense to me. Who do you think the Bills hire?
I don't know. We say that on the podcast, and then it becomes like a thing where I don't want to be held to it, but I still think Clint Kubiak is a very big part of this when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
It's either him or Brian Daboll, I think.
So if you're the Bills, or if you're a Bills fan today, and this is a really complicated position to be in, are you rooting for the Patriots so then the Broncos are available for interviews, or are you still no way? You're still just rooting
I
for the
don't think
Broncos.
so. Because if you are a Bills fan and you really want Davis Webb, then fine. But I don't. Davis Webb. I don't think the Bills need Davis Webb right now as their head coach. Like, I think Davis Webb is going to be a coach. He's could be a fine coach. Not sure he's ready for this right now.
I think Davis Webb is the dark horse here. I think there's a very strong chance Davis Webb is their head coach or their offensive coordinator.
Maybe your offensive coordinator, yes, but you could still wait on that. You don't have to.
Sure.
You could have them
Definitely.
win and go play, and you don't have to have that happen right away. So we'll see where that goes. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. We went for over an hour. We'll talk more about the Bills head coach search. Of course, follow us along. Matt's at WKBW TV. I'm at WGR Sports Radio 550, at Matt_Bove, at Sal Sports, also at Sal Sports on the YouTube and video side of things. Download, subscribe, wherever you pod. Thanks a lot to our producer, Mike Rabier. We'll talk to you next time, and it's always game day in Buffalo.